Yes.
Happy Monday and welcome to our interview series with our incredible authors from Women Thrive. Today you're in for a treat because we're meeting with Paige Frisone. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. It is a happy Monday, and I'm very excited to be here.
I know this Monday morning we woke up to pings on our phones because our book is officially live and launched. Well, not quite, but pre-orders is launched. What was that morning like for you?
I think I woke up to like 28 text messages, and I'm like, what's going on? And yes, the news that the links are available for pre order. I was like, I'm behind. I got to go. I got to get up. I showered. I'm like starting to send the links to people in between calls and clients and all that good stuff. But the energy is really the momentum that's building. And I'm so excited that every single day we get closer to this being in full fruition. So it's amazing.
Yes, Paige. I'm excited to be back here in a way because we've done social media lives earlier this year, some last year. You've been part of our community. You've been a speaker on our summit at the Women Thrive in March this year. And now I feel like we've come around a full circle. 1 year later, you're releasing this book alongside other authors. First of all, introduce yourself to our audience who may be meeting you for the first time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Paige Frisone. I am a subconscious health practitioner and the founder and owner of my business, Inner Realm Wellness LLC. I'm also an award winning impact speaker and an international speaker now, I guess, as well as a published writer and author. And I really help people struggling with depression, anxiety, trauma, and addiction heal on a cellular level by processing the root memories and emotions that are trapped and living in the subconscious mind so that people can live a life of optimal health and wellness. And it's amazing to be here a year later. People say all the time, give yourself a year and see how far you've come, right? 1 year from now, you have no idea the potential of where you could be. And it really is that moment for me. So I appreciate you bringing up, this journey, these orbits around the Women Thrive sun, because it's so cool being in this moment.
Yes, and we already have had quite a journey earlier this year as we were preparing for the Women Thrive Summit in March. That was quite an experience. And I always say I had the pleasure of watching you grow through that process. I remember when the first time you were doing showcase and you were like, I'm scared. I don't know how this is going to show plan out. And I'm not sure what I'm going to say. And then Paige comes onto our virtual stage and she just drops the mic and she just delivers like a TEDx worthy presentation in 5 minutes. All right. I was like, "Whew, where did this girl come from? Like, what happened there?"
I mean, yeah, that I had the same surprise and awe that you did and that we both still do. And I feel like the rudder that's been guiding the speaking summit as well as this writing launch is this part of me that's like, what if I go bigger? Like, what if I go to that exact place that I
Mm.
am scared to go, or that I think I shouldn't go, or that I've never gone before? And every single time I ask myself that what if, and I push myself just a bit further, the reward is monumental. And so I've continued kind of treating that like a muscle. And I'm like, what if I just inch my way a little bit more this way or a little bit more that way? And here we are. It's what's gotten me here today.
Okay, all right. So, what's the next muscle you're about to stretch then, other than
Woo!
becoming an author?
Yes. Okay. My next muscle is the travel muscle because we're going to Spain. I'm going to see you in a couple of weeks, which is freaking amazing. And for me, it's a huge muscle. It's, as is everything in life, whether it's something you're creating in business or something that you're working on personally with yourself or with relationship, like it's you with you at the end of the day. It's not about the other person. It's not about the plane. It's not about the book. It's about like my relationship to all of these things. And my relationship to my bigness and my visibility and my growth potential has been worked recently. And that's going to continue to get worked in the next couple of weeks with this travel, because me saying yes to this trip, it's like me saying yes to myself for the very first time in a way. And while that's not necessarily true, it feels that way. It feels that big. And so I'm just so excited.
Ooh, so your chapter from silence to sovereignty, spinning secrets into sacred wisdom. What can people expect reading your chapter in this book?
Yeah, so this chapter was intentionally, lovingly crafted as a vignette format. It's a zoom in, zoom out. We're at 15, and then we're at 21, and then we're at 26, and then we're back to 17. And at first, I thought that structure would be a hindrance because I'm thinking to myself, I don't have chronological memories. I have fragmentations. I have a very nonlinear journey. And how do I write about that? Because we're so used to things going from A to Z. And that's not my life. And I can remember this and then I can remember that, but I don't know how I got from point A to point B. And so I actually used that and found a way to like transmute the struggle around that so that I could intentionally design it in a way where you're brought into the visceral experience of depression, the visceral experience of anxiety, the visceral experience of an eating disorder, and what it is to struggle with yourself every single moment of every single day. And I don't know. I hope it's effective. I hope it's successful because it was something that I was like, can I pull this off? Like, this is the biggest journey of my entire life. And I am putting it out there on the page. And I need for people to know that it was done with care because I just was so tired of like beating myself up throughout my life that there was no space for me to be hard on myself throughout this process. It was more a curiosity of like, how do I work this? Like, how do I work with what I have that's here on the table right now? And how do I make it a beautiful mosaic? Because all of us are that. All of us are parts and pieces, and we have fragmentations, and we have parts of us that feel broken and, that can't be fixed. And really, this is a journey of remedying all of that and finding harmony amongst all of those invisible parts.
What was the journey of writing your chapter and putting it down on paper? I mean, you share quite a personal story of your journey, your healing, your overcoming. And I know personally that it's not an easy thing to do. How did you find it behind the scenes?
Whew. It was a dark cloud for a while, I'm not going to lie. And at the same time, I've learned how to trust that darkness because I knew light would be on the other side. And my beacon, the thing that kept me going, was that I knew how I wanted to feel at the
Mm,
end. And I knew how I wanted everyone else to feel at the end, but I didn't know how to get there. But me knowing and having that embodied feeling was what I was kind of chasing throughout the journey. And so my first draft, you read it, was a disaster. And it was just very messy, very muddled, very heavy. And I remember looking back at it and feeling messy and heavy and dark. And so it was a constant process of patience. It was very much touch and go for me. I had to write the thing and meet the deadlines and then step away and then come back. And the more that we did that routine of writing, pausing, stepping back, returning, writing,
mm,
pausing, stepping back, the more I got into that rhythm, the more I could trust that who I was this moment writing this chapter was different than who I was last week writing this chapter. And so time actually really healed. And at first, I was thinking, how am I going to write the story of my life in this period of time? There's just no way. And then it's like, okay, I work really quick, I process really quick. So I started to learn that who I am tomorrow is not who I am today, is not who I am 2 days from now. And because of that, I could come at each draft with new, fresh perspective. And I just rewrote like every version that I had as if I was starting over. And I could see this image of like weaving a basket in
mm.
a way where things would thread together. And I'm very like intuitive and body based. And so I could feel in my body what felt like the right word, what felt like the right flavor, what felt like the right sentence, or I should scrap this or whatever. And so I just followed that every step of the way.
It's amazing. It's amazing how you describe it that, you kind of had to reiterate, but also in the process of doing that, you had the opportunity to kind of heal through it and come to a new version of you with a fresh wisdom. And I noticed for most of the authors who took part in it, this was quite a journey of going back, because when you go back to some of your memories, it can still feel a bit raw and vulnerable. And then when you think about it, you got to share it with the world. So you got to share it with your family and friends. How's that going to feel? Did you have some of those worries that creeped in along the way and perhaps had doubts like, what am I doing here?
Oh yeah, I still have those worries because like my family hasn't read it. My family hasn't read it yet. They will probably, but my partner's been my rock throughout this because she was the one that read each draft with me. And for me, so I am very chameleonic. That's like a
Yeah.
gift, but it's also a shadow. And so at the beginning, when I hopped onto these calls and I'm hearing what the book might be about, what are the themes, what are all these women writing about, I felt myself wanting to cater to that for the sake of cohesion. And because of that, my first draft reflected that. I didn't have clarity. I was working to grasp at ideas, to make something make sense, and to be obedient and to make things just likable. And that's a story of my life. And so I found that in my first draft, I had this moment that was like the big reveal of this chapter. And I skirted right on by. I was like, I'm not going to actually say it. I'm just going to allude to it. And I didn't let myself go there because I had convinced myself that wasn't what this chapter was going to be about. And it wasn't until we started peer editing where a couple of the ladies was like, I'm sorry, what's here? You gotta like go there. And I'm like, no, that's not the point. Like, I don't want to do that. And they're like, I don't care. This is what we need. And so because the peer editing was a representation of the readers and what the readers might think when they're seeing these works, I went to exactly the place that I had sworn I wouldn't go. And that to me is the biggest growth moment in this whole process because it does involve my family. It does involve things that have been really traumatizing, and for myself as well as for people hearing my experience and hearing my reality. And it's this very moment that I share that changed some of my relationships with family and people in my life forever. And so I am owning that because it's my right to speak my truth and to have those boundaries and to share because I know it's not just about me. It's bigger than that, and other people need to feel their own truth as well. And I think that when we can reflect our truths to each other, then we get to heal. And I know that because when I actually went into that moment,
Yeah.
not only did it shape my whole chapter in a different light, and not only did it give me new purpose for why I entered this process, but a couple of the other women in our cohort, no less, let alone whoever's going to come out from the woodworks in the world, have said, because of your repressed memories and your process of not remembering what happened, I remembered things about my life that I had also repressed. And I'm thinking, what? That's
Wow.
amazing. And so that's the point. That's the affirmation that I received for going deep.
Yeah. I think just observing what was unfolding in the process and unfolding on the individual level as well as collective level, the biggest breakthroughs, the biggest stepping into our power, into owning our stories. Some of the women have shifted a lot of things in their lives as a result of being in part of this book and really owning their story. I think we get so empowered when we become unapologetic to speak our truth. And I feel like you, Paige, particularly have done that so beautifully, not in a rebel kind of way, but in an empowered kind of way. Do you find that some of your relationships have changed as a result of how you show up in your life?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And I call it growing pains. We talked about this the other day, right? It's like I'm not willing to tolerate certain things in my life anymore, certain dynamics, certain abuses, for lack of better words, certain things that have kept me small because I've outgrown them. And so whenever I get a glimpse of them, I don't have the tolerance anymore. And when I spoke on, the Women Thrive stage, it was all about tolerance and playing this game when I was a kid called the tolerance game, and thinking that being strong and being empowered meant holding everything, holding it all in and not vocalizing my truth. And now I'm actually learning the definition of strength and empowerment is the opposite. And I have gotten to the place where I'm very aware that not speaking your truth is a disservice to yourself and the world. I am working towards getting to the place where I can fully embody the fact that speaking your truth is a service to the world. So there's a little bit of nuance in that I'm still working on, but I am so on my way. And I feel like that strength and that empowerment is what helps us call it like it is really quick and be able to say no much faster, much bolder, much bigger. And I think that we've gotten clear recently in some of our behind the scenes conversations about how there are people that don't want you to succeed. And it's not personal. It's their healing that needs to happen, their wounds that they're being activated. And so if there's one thing I've taken away from this process, it's the power of co-creation and the power of the co-creative impact of what happens when we come together. And so because I've seen the impact of what happens when we come together to share our stories and transform, I understand now that when I show up as my light and my strength, it's going to trigger other people's shadow. And you have two options. You either rise to level to that space, or you may end up, going back into the shadow. And that's okay. Like, it's all fine. It's just who's in alignment and who's not right now. And so, yeah, there's a lot that's changing.
Wow, Paige, thank you for sharing and articulating that so well, because I think growth can bring up a lot of challenges and questioning ourselves and that self empowerment piece, because sometimes we are living in specific dynamics or environments that doesn't allow us grow past it. And it's as if we need a challenge, or we need that push to get over the verge and come out on the other side, because otherwise you can keep getting stuck in the same pattern, allowing the same situations to occur, allowing the same relationships, and even our own mindset can continue spinning the same wheels. And for someone who works in subconscious and conscious health, do you find that that's what's important? What is really important to break that pattern for us to move forward in a new way?
Yeah. I think for me, I have this like invisible detector because I do subconscious work where I can like feel and hear and see things pretty quickly. I mean, I've always practiced that since I was a kid, which I do talk about in the book, because it's all about secret keeping, and there's a lot in the silence that gets communicated. And for me, I say silence was my first language. It was something that I had to interpret, and it forced me deeper into the invisible, deeper into the things that we couldn't see, but the things that we knew. And when I was young, that was actually like crazy making for me, because it was like I couldn't explain why I knew what I knew. And I was in an environment, unfortunately, that required that explanation, that if you couldn't prove it, it wasn't real. And so now I am living in a world where I have more compassion, I have more empathy for people, where I'm seeing what's conscious, what they're choosing versus what they're not choosing, what's involuntary. And if they lash out, or if they say mean words, or if there's not support there, like, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And at the same time, I have to have my boundaries too, because I don't want, and I will not tolerate disrespect, and I will not tolerate those projections coming at me, especially because I've been doing healing work my entire life on myself, with myself, starting age 7 in therapy. And so if somebody else isn't doing that level of work for them, and then they're hurting other people, and we're doing that work for us, there's innately an imbalance. And so you got to kind of know where you're willing to fight certain battles and where you just kind of need to walk away.
Wow. Powerful, powerful stuff. Because not everyone would have the same level of awareness, self awareness, and healing in order to meet you there. And as I say, there is a lot of the times the imbalance, which can cause a lot of problems, and especially if those relationships are with family or friends. You have to unfortunately walk away. Oh, I feel like we go real deep here today. It is. I think, every time we get to have this conversation page, it's a deep conversation. But it's life-changing. I feel like it's important to have this conversation because a lot of people go through this in silence and in silos.
Yeah.
And it's not very often that we get to hear conversations like this. And how do you break that kind of pattern of, being stuck in an environment that perhaps isn't serving you anymore?
Totally. And, in the scientific world, like, for example, when it comes to dehydration, once you prove statistically that you're dehydrated, like once you start to feel thirsty, you're already pathologically dehydrated, right? So the goal is to be preventative. The goal is to
Yeah.
be one step ahead so that your body isn't expressing the dis-ease, because once it's starting to express that dis-ease, it's like we're behind the eight ball. We have so much work that we need to do to dig ourselves out of that hole. And for me, same thing. Like if there are things we're suppressing, even if they're just emotions, emotions are very powerful. They're energies in motion. And if we don't express them, that motion stops and it gets stagnated inside of us. And then we develop mental health struggles, or we develop physical dis-ease and disorders, or relational dysfunction, or whatever it is. And once those things start showing up, we already have dug ourselves the hole. So don't wait. Don't wait for those things to start showing up for you to heal and process what's living under the surface. And I feel like no matter what people have been through, we all have common threads of suffering and struggle, and we all have the same emotions that we experience in different ways. And so there's this level of relatability here, or universality, amongst all of these stories. And I do feel like we all, as women in this book, as well as probably a lot of folks out there, feel like lone wolves in our journey. We feel isolated and alone. I know that that was my story. And when we come out and we share our hearts and we share our voice, that's where the healing happens. Because what's that quote that says, shame dies when secrets are told in safe places? And what we perceive to be secrets are actually such gifts to be able to offer one another, because we more often than not feel the same way. And so when you gather a bunch of lone wolves in a community, no longer are we just
Yeah.
alone. So this is what my experience has been here.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I think having that support and working as peers is so important because you really can step out much more confident and much more empowered. And I feel like this is what we managed to do at Women Thrive with this book, really tie our hands together and say, look, we can do this because this work has not been easy. It has been of service to others. And now we're just a few days away from the book launching. How does it feel becoming an author?
Oh, it's amazing. It's a dream come true. And it really is. It was my first dream. It was my first love. And I never knew how I was going to get there. And what I've learned is the more I trust myself and the more I follow my alignment and my truth, the more the answers present themselves to me, the more the things that I thought I could never do or figure out just appear. And that's exactly what has happened. And I know this is just the beginning. And I'm so proud. Like, I haven't even said that. Like, I'm so proud of this work. I'm proud of these women. I'm proud of myself. And I'm proud to like reclaim all the parts of me that I siloed and kept in corners. And there really is no better feeling than being proud of yourself, because no one can take that away. And that in itself is its own form of strength. And so, yeah, I just hope to impact the hearts out there that are really seeking some extra understanding and support.
And you should be so proud because your chapter is about to be released. It's beautiful. Silence to Sovereignty, Spinning Secrets into Sacred Wisdom. And you have way with words. When I remember when I was reading your final draft, I was like, wow, there was a huge difference from the first draft that you've written. And then I saw your final draft and I thought, You poured your heart and soul into it. You're amazing with words because you've been writing for many, many years. And I think it's just going to be a beautiful work that we get to see and share with the world. So if you haven't already, head over to womenthrivessummit.com/book. Make sure you grab your copy. It's already available for pre order on Kindle, and the paperback will be available later this week. And whilst you're there, also register yourself for the upcoming Women Thrive book launch event happening on 2nd of November. And Paige, before we wrap up, how can people connect with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so social media at Inner Realm Wellness on Facebook and Instagram. Definitely send me a message so we can connect. And I'd love to hear what you resonate with about this conversation today, as well as once you get the book, let me know what your tidbits and takeaways are. And then my website has a whole lot of information about me and the services I offer, as well as these projects like speaking and this book that we're launching. So www.innerrealmwellness.life. And there's also a free gift there for you to pick up and enjoy just for being here today.
Amazing. Paige, thank you so much for one, being part of the book project, sharing your heart and soul and your words and wisdom on our platform and in our book, and for being here to share your message with the world. I really appreciate it. It's been amazing to watch you throughout this process and to support you and now see your story get out there into the world to make waves.
Thank you so much. It's a true, true honor. And I know that this will continue to grow and flourish the way that it's meant and carry on this mission of empowerment. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And everyone who has watched this, thank you so much for staying here with us or watching this on replay. Make sure to leave a comment, maybe a celebratory comment for Paige and myself for our book launch, or share this if you can with your own followers. Who knows who may have needed to hear this message today. Thanks so much to everyone, and we look forward to seeing you on another interview with one of our authors or the launch event for the book. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.